Hello, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you joining me here today. This is another video that is a special request. So there has been quite a lot of discussion here lately, which I very much appreciate. So thank you to all of you who have proposed topics for consideration here on this series of videos. I'm more than happy to pop in and talk about these. So if you have specific topics, I'm always open to it. Please go ahead and ask. It could be something that's really bothering you or something that you'd like to take a deeper dive in. And let's do that. We're going to do that today with forgiveness. And I've shot videos and recorded videos on forgiveness in the past. However, because it is the central practical thing in A Course in Miracles, I mean, it is the moment-to-moment practical centerpiece of learning this course. And because that's the case, this is a topic of conversation that's worth revisiting over and over and in newer and newer videos. And I think because there are close to 900 of these videos right now, it makes perfect sense to drip them in and pepper them in as a reminder to ourselves, if nothing else, to forgive the Son of God. And while we're at it, forgive ourselves for dreaming all of this. It's a dream. If you remember to say that throughout the course of the day, that's very handy too. This is a dream. This is a dream. This is a dream. This is a dream. This is a dream, etc., etc. Okay. Let's say some more here about forgiveness. Let me preface everything by simply stating that forgiveness is grossly misunderstood here in the world. So it is no surprise that when one encounters A Course in Miracles and reaches the discovery that I got to forgive everything, that there's some questioning, possibly some incredibly stern and persistent resistance. So let's talk about how the world views forgiveness, and then we'll go into how this course views it. They're very different. And then we'll talk about how to practice it moment to moment, where the action lies in all spirituality. All of it. It's in our doing it, so that our experience proves to us that the teachings are true. We prove it to ourselves. You will prove it to yourself. I will not prove a single thing to you, nor would I ever try. I feel relieved. The world views forgiveness as transactional. First of all, the world itself is an illusion. There is no world. That's the central teaching of A Course in Miracles. Gosh, if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. There is no world. You're not a body. Things are not as they seem, and you know that. So I invite you to stay tuned here. You're about to hear something, what I don't have any idea, that your inner teacher wants you to hear. So stick around. The world sees forgiveness as transactional. It's like a business deal. And how this usually plays out is what is referred to in this material as forgiveness to destroy. It keeps people separate. The way people view forgiveness keeps people separate, supposedly, because there is no separation of any kind, but it maintains the illusion of separation. Because what happens, and I'll give you an example from my own childhood, is that there are people in this world that forgive with strings attached or conditions attached, which is not, as you might imagine, real forgiveness. My own mother was a classic example of this, and perhaps yours was too, or someone that you know. It's a common enough experience in the world. I would do something as a kid and would receive what passed for forgiveness from my mother. And it was along the lines of, well, I'll forgive you just this once, but if you ever do it again, you're forever grounded, and I'm going to smash your car, and I'm going to cancel your birthday, and you're going to burn in a lake of fire in hell. Don't do it again. So maybe that seems distinctly familiar to you. Forgiveness with multiple strings attached. And how does it maintain a sense of separation? Well, in this type of forgiveness, which is how the world sees it, as a business transaction, you have someone that deigns to forgive someone else. You have the supposed transgressor and the one that is high and mighty, seated upon a regal throne that deigns to forgive this little scumbag down here, little miscreant. Yeah. Stooping in their regal magnanimity to forgive the Son of God for something he supposedly did to them. A transgression, a sin, something naughty. And this sense of separation is maintained by the constant threat to cancel our birthday. It's maintained. There is someone that is higher and someone that's lower. Separation, illusion, that is completely non-existent. And that's how the world sees forgiveness. So the Holy Spirit wishes to teach us something very different. There is no separation of any kind. Your brother not only is like you, he is you. He is you. You are not a body. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome to A Course in Miracles. You are not a body. You are free. You'll hear that again. But we all know this. And we run around identifying as the physical body, as an ego, as an individual self-sustaining survival unit that can't really sustain itself. And what we deem to be the survival unit is an 80% water sack of guts and bones. There's nothing precious about that in itself, is there? The only thing valuable about it is the use to which you put it in the mind. So forgiveness, according to this course, true forgiveness operates at the level of the mind. Central to this is our acknowledging that the separation never took place. Your brother is not separate from you. He is you. Ideas leave not their source. Capital S. You are the thought of God. Your brother's the thought of God. Your worst political enemy is the thought of God. Your mother is the thought of God. We're all the one thought of God. Ideas leave not their source, capital S. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Where are you? And what are you? And who are you? What's going on when we forgive is we have multiple opportunities. Anything that is not wholly joyous in our lives, anything that upsets us in any way, however great or small, doesn't matter, it upsets our peace of mind. Anything that is not wholly joyous is an opportunity to forgive. Here's what we do. We're overlooking what appears to be reality. Is someone pissing somebody off, or someone transgressing someone or something? That's what appears to happen on the surface. Underneath, what's going on here is we're all one, and this transaction, this transgression that appeared to take place, is simply a dream appearance. It never occurred. So we overlook the surface level and we acknowledge the core, the truth, that the separation never occurred. We forgive our brother for what he did not do, because he didn't actually do anything. The separation never occurred, and we're all perfectly, comfortably, lovingly at home in God right now. We're just not awake to it. And that's why they call this thing called progress on the path, this thing called enlightenment. That's why it's also called awakening. We're waking up from a dream. How do we do it? Acknowledge that this is a dream, that what our brother appeared to do to us, he did not really do, because there's no other. There is no separation of any kind. So there's no separate other against whom we transgress or who transgresses against us. It doesn't happen. It never has, in truth. We're acknowledging that. True forgiveness of the Son of God. So what does this look like as a practical matter? Well, an important thing to understand here, if you take nothing else away from this, is true forgiveness, as taught in this course, is done under the guidance of our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit. Now, you may call the Holy Spirit whatever you want. Jesus and the Holy Spirit are one and the same. You could call your inner teacher Mike or Sue or Wilma. You could call it by many names and refer to it as your guides. Doesn't make any difference. The Holy Spirit, our inner teacher, is part of our mind that knows the truth and speaks of it to us. The Holy Spirit is the voice for God. Should we allow him to run the show, he'll show us what to do in every circumstance. So we do our forgiveness work under the guidance of our inner teacher. On the surface, it will look differently every time, because something else will come up in your experience that appears to be a separate situation, but in fact, it's all the same. It just has a different outward appearance. The content of it, what underlies the appearance on the outside, is in fact the same. It's one and the same, and there is no outside. So as a practical matter, let's say I'm scrolling social media, because it happens, and someone has posted something particularly brutal and nasty and snide and snotty, a conglomeration of nice, nasty attack thoughts just because they can. I have family members that do this, or they share someone else's nasty post on social media just because they can click a button. Let's say that happens. What I would do is, when I notice myself judging, when I notice myself blaming or thinking all kinds of dirty, nasty thoughts about somebody's hate post, because I don't personally agree with it, when I find myself judging, I stop myself right there and forgive. I forgive the person who posted the material. I forgive the material itself. Forgive the platform itself, the internet, everything, the world itself. Forgive that, and forgive yourself for dreaming this. Do not forget to forgive yourself for dreaming this. can help to throw in an acknowledgement or two that this separation never occurred. My brother and I are one, something of that. And then what I do is I release this to the Holy Spirit, this situation. I release it to the Holy Spirit and I join with the Holy Spirit in peace. The Holy Spirit will handle all of this. What this situation is it corresponds to unconscious guilt. That's unconscious. So we're not consciously aware of it. It's unconscious. It's buried deep in our mind, and it's guilt from the seeming separation from God that never took place. So each outward thing that angers or annoys us or makes us uncomfortable is an opportunity to forgive, to overlook all of that. And we release the situation to our inner teacher who clears up the unconscious guilt for us. So our part in this is to recognize that we're getting carried away and forgive and release. That's our part. Our inner teacher does the rest. It's very, very powerful. Now, if you're worried about forgiving someone like your mom, know that this is all done in the mind. You do not have to call somebody. You don't have to send an 80-page letter, and you don't have to sit down for a dreaded 4-hour-long tear-jerking conversation to clear the air if you don't want to. I mean, if you do and you're guided to do that by your inner teacher, great. But you don't have to. You don't have to send an email. You don't have to place a call. You don't have to send a text. This is all done in your mind, and the other person does not need to be aware that you're even doing it. Case in point, my mother and I had a very strained relationship the last 2 years of her life. She passed away in 2016, and she and I didn't talk the last couple of years that she was alive because I had set some healthy boundaries up from decades of emotional and psychological abuse that had come to a head, was what it was. I set some healthy boundaries. And I was practicing and studying this course at the time. So I knew that I would have to delve into this big forgiveness opportunity on a platter because here it is. I was ready to do it. And you won't ever be given anything that you're not ready to handle. That's for sure. If something's making you uncomfortable, it's coming up for your forgiveness and release. And I will say that this particular forgiveness lesson was the largest forgiveness lesson of my life to date. Definitely hands down the biggest. And I did it all in my own mind without calling, because I couldn't call. It would invite more of the same nasty behavior that I don't have to put up with. Forgiveness can be done behind what looks to be a firewall of protective boundaries. In fact, there's no firewall. You can simply say, okay, I'm not going to have a relationship with you, and here's why. Let's all have an adult conversation about it. And you can do this on your own. In fact, it's the only place where it's actually done is in your mind. So you can forgive without the other person ever even being aware of it. It's a relief on a level that you can only imagine if you've done it yourself. But let me say that when you commit to this, there is tremendous relief, great release of stress, of a burden, of a psychological weight. There is a great lightening that goes on, lightening the load. Isn't that what you want? It is, because we all want the peace of God. So what we do here is when we appear to be separate, we train our mind to see that we're not separate. enter the practice of true forgiveness. So, how each individual forgiveness opportunity goes is going to be between you and your inner teacher. So ask your inner teacher for guidance. A very beautiful, very simple, and powerful prayer is to allow your inner teacher to direct your forgiveness. Give your inner teacher this day. Please direct my forgiveness. I give you this day. Please direct my forgiveness. I give you this business meeting. Please direct my forgiveness. I give you this conversation with this person that irks me. Please direct my forgiveness. Rinse, repeat. You see where I'm going with this? Because we do this under the guidance of our inner teacher. The actual thought process varies. Every time it looks differently. That is just the outward appearance. It is the content, the essence of this that is the same. Under the guidance of your inner teacher, you're acknowledging that the separation never took place and that you are learning to see things as they are, not the way that we've made them. We're learning to see things as they are, not as they are not. And that is what this course is for. And it's all done in the mind. So, to the extent that this brings up questions, I certainly invite them. This is one that is, of course, a challenge to a number of course students. In fact, it's a challenge to all course students in the end, isn't it? Because we're all conditioned to believe that we're separate. So to undo that belief 180 degrees appears to take time, but take heart. Because that's what time is for us to learn our forgiveness lessons. And here's what happens when we do. When we do, we don't have to repeat it. That particular nugget of unconscious guilt isn't going to come up again because you've forgiven and released it. The Holy Spirit takes care of it. Does that shorten time? Yeah. Yep. It does indeed. And we all want the peace of God. So we can do our part to have that. And meanwhile, in the world, it becomes a lot more peaceful, doesn't it? We're learning to see things as they are. So if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. The subscription button is right here. Please feel welcome to click on that. We'd love to have you join us. And thank you, as always, for the suggestion that we revisit this subject, and we'll revisit it again and again and again, because it's important, after all. All right. Thank you. I'll see you soon.